Hey, what you reading?
Stuff about school funding in Illinois.
Well, what does it say?
The Illinois school finance system is inequitable for students and taxpayers. Although some state aid is designed to have a wealth equalizing effect and some state aid is designed to be sensitive to student needs, it is insufficient in magnitude to overcome the impact of local revenue, which is much higher than state aid, is strongly related to wealth, and is not related to student need. What does that mean in simple language?
It means that Illinois has the John Wayne Gacy of K-12 funding systems. For decades, it's been murdering opportunity for kids in low-wealth districts.
Those are harsh words. Can you back them up?
Sure, let's investigate. Every dot on this graph represents an Illinois elementary school district. The further we go to the right, the wealthier the school district. The higher we go, the more the district spends per kid. This is from the year 2012. And we can see that the wealthier districts tend to spend actually a lot more money than the districts that have lower wealth to tax. The corresponding graph compares the wealth level of the school district to the tax rate that is paid. And we see the low wealth districts tend to have higher tax rates. Putting this together again, the higher wealth districts spend more money, and they do it despite the fact that they are paying lower tax rates. Higher spending for lower tax rates just isn't fair. Now this graph puts together the concepts of both tax rate and spending per pupil. Every district in the upper left-hand corner has both higher spending per kid and a lower tax rate than every district in the lower right-hand corner. Now the districts shown in red are all wealthy districts. They all have at least $500,000 of tax base per kid. If we want to improve opportunity for all of the kids in Illinois, Illinois needs a Robin Hood who can raise taxes on the rich and send money to the poor.
Does Illinois have any choice about this?
Well, let's compare spending per kid and wealth in both Illinois and Minnesota. Here's the graph we already saw from Illinois, where as districts get wealthier, the spending per kid tends to go up. The relationship between wealth and spending in Minnesota is much lower. The low wealth districts in Minnesota have about as much money to spend per kid as the wealthier districts. So fairness is possible.
Why are things so unfair in Illinois?
Well, this graph gives you a hint about one very important factor. Every dot on this graph is one of the 50 states in the United States. And the higher up you go, the higher the portion of revenue for schools comes from state aid. The portion of school funding from state aid in Illinois is the lowest of the 50 states. And that's a problem.
But do the people who run Illinois want Robin Hood?
Well, it looks like lots of kids in the rich school districts are already doing fine. And so are their parents who pay taxes. I'm talking about the districts shown with the red dots here. But the districts down here have lots of problems, and Illinois has lots of people who want to do the right thing. Most of these people simply don't understand how the formula murders opportunity. Maybe we can educate them. Part of our task is to look at the formula that creates the unfairness. It's funny, but the first couple minutes about the formula may make you think that it was designed by Robin Hood himself. It provides extra aid for school districts with low wealth and also extra for those with high poverty. Our focus here will be on wealth. If a district has no property to tax, then the portion of its basic revenue that comes from state aid will be 100%. It's got to be all from state aid because there'd be no ability whatsoever to generate anything from property taxes if there's nothing to tax. But as wealth increases, going from left to right on the graph, as wealth increases, the state aid portion goes down. Under normal circumstances, that would mean equal funding for equal tax effort, and Robin Hood would be pleased. Now the straight line on the left portion of the graph is called the resource equalizer formula, and it applies to districts with low to moderate wealth. The alternate method and flat grant formulas are shown further to the right and apply to the wealthier school districts. If Robin Hood designed this system, the resource equalizer formula would just keep on going in a straight line all the way down into negative territory. That would mean negative wealth or negative state aid for the wealthiest school districts. And the state legislature would probably never approve of that. For better or worse, even the richest district in Illinois gets at least a little bit of state aid. Now let's shift to another graph that shows the implication of this system for property taxes. In Illinois, basic revenue per student is $6,119. This graph shows the relationship between property wealth and the local property tax rate that's needed to generate this $6,119. And it shows how this necessary rate is different for the low wealth districts than it is for the high wealth districts. First of all, for the low and medium wealth districts under normal circumstances, the levy rate that's needed to generate the $6,119 is a little bit more than 2%. Now, for the wealthier districts, they can generate that same $6,119 with a lower tax effort. However, we currently do not have normal conditions because state aid is being prorated at a rate of about 89%, and districts have to have higher property taxes to make up for the state aid that's lost through proration. So when we factor in this proration, the levy rate needed to generate the $6,119 looks like this. You can see to the right side that the wealthy districts feel hardly any effect at all from the proration rate because what they're losing is 11% of what's a very, very small state aid in the first place. But for the less wealthy districts, the amount of levy that's needed to make up for the lost state aid is much higher. However, and this is very fundamental, most districts find that $6,119 per student simply isn't enough to let them offer the kind of program that they want to offer. Now let's say that the target is not $6,119, but, and this is a moderate figure really, let's say the target is $8,000 per student. Then the levy rate needed to generate that amount looks like this. And you can see that in the low wealth districts, the necessary levy rate is much, much higher than it is in the wealthier districts. This simply isn't fair. Here's a visual that will help you remember this. In the wealthy districts, in effect, they get to eat steak. But in the low wealth districts, where you've got to have a higher tax rate to generate the same amount of money, it's like they have to eat cold porridge. Over here in the low wealth districts, opportunity is being murdered. And this will help you remember that. Well, what can you do about this? We've had this formula for more than 2 decades, and it just hasn't changed, and the injustice hasn't changed. You could just give up because it's been around for so long. You could just put a smile on your face, like Pogo the Clown here, and worry about something else. Or you could shoot for justice. Hi, my name is Bob Porter, and this is my son and cameraman, Russell Porter. Back in the 80s, I was a school finance specialist with the Illinois Bureau of the Budget. The funding formula is essentially unchanged since then. If you don't like government transfer payments, remember that education is special. Today's schools create the economic future for everyone, and money does matter.